In 60 seconds, we've got a brand new episode of Live from My Office. And dare I say, this one's more important than the others, I think. In the meantime, we thank Apt Electronics and Appliances, our title sponsor here on Live from My Office. The month is May, and Apt, of course, is your number one destination for the home and your number one destination for everything furniture. I sleep on an Apt mattress. I sit in an Apt recliner. I may have Apt furniture I've forgotten about. But with an upcoming expansion of the furniture showroom, which is going to provide an additional 30,000 square feet, I don't even know where they're going to put that. Apt is the perfect place to get inspired for a living room makeover and more. Maybe a complete home update if you like. Maybe a chair and a half, or maybe a recliner, maybe a new mattress. All right, now I'm just channeling me. Explore rugs and sofas and dining tables and mattresses and more with trend-setting brands like Palliser and FlexSteel, Hooker Furniture, and, of course, Our House as well. Visit the store in Glenview to shop stylish furniture in person or explore the collection at apt.com. For free and home delivery, professional installation, and complete satisfaction, shop Apt, pleasing people since 1936. And don't forget, if you use the promo code Cochran25, spend $150 or more, and they'll give you $25 back. Save $25 with the promo code Cochran25 in store and at apt.com. All right, we begin with the most current news of the day first. I'm recording this on May 4th. And here as I sit here, Donald Trump has posted an AI photo of himself dressed as the Pope. Look, you can do a deep dive into the psychology of all of this, but it's probably a waste of time. My personal belief is that Trump's damaged enough to believe he ought to be the Pope. But in the meantime, on its surface, it's nothing short of insulting, it's disrespectful, it's embarrassing, and it's dumb. There's 50 to 60 million Catholics in the United States. There's 1.4 billion Catholics around the world. They're not laughing. A new pope is not a joke. It's also not an opportunity for thirsty Donald to try to steal the story. There's no upside, none, for the United States when people everywhere see this, Donald Trump dressed like a pope and literally say out loud to themselves or to each other, what's wrong with that guy? That's the problem. All right, onward. It didn't feel like much to the regular viewer, but on this episode of Live from My Office, I want to talk about freedom of the press. This is part of our semi-regular Know Your Government feature as well. There was a shocking event on 60 Minutes recently. The explanation can be a little bit complicated, but it's important, so I hope you'll follow along. Correspondent Scott Pelley ended the show with a harsh commentary on the threat to 60 Minutes. A beloved boss exited, the owners were interfering with the show, and the question was hanging in the balance, will America's number one news program survive? That all remains to be seen. But let me give you the backstory. CBS is owned by a company called, or was owned by a company called Viacom. Viacom remerged with a bigger company called Paramount, also former CBS owner. That was in 2019. Well, now Paramount is trying to merge with a company called Skydance Media. Skydance is run by David Ellison. His father is Larry Ellison. Larry started Oracle and happens to be the sixth richest man in the world, worth about $165 billion. Sherry Redstone is a longtime entertainment executive and basically was the big boss at Viacom. She also happened to be the daughter of the man who built the company, Sumner Redstone. She is the controlling shareholder at Paramount and is in line for a giant payday if this Skydance deal is completed. How big is the payday? Well, reports say the Redstone family could make about $1.75 billion out of the $8 billion agreement. The Trump administration has approval power over the deal. Here's a shocker. They're getting in the way. In other words, this is about big money and a lack of concern for one of the last places for true journalism. All right, I'm hoping you're still with me. The backstory continues. During the presidential campaign last summer and fall, 60 Minutes had a sit-down with Vice President Kamala Harris. Shocker, Trump didn't like it much. Trump sued CBS for, like a bazillion dollars, let's say. The claim was that 60 Minutes deceptively edited the piece to make Kamala Harris look better and therefore interfered with the election. The election that he won. Legal experts live in reality. They know he couldn't show any damages, even if what he was saying was true. They say the lawsuit's baseless, and CBS couldn't lose. The problem is they chose not to fight. It seems with the threat of Trump stopping the new merger, Paramount's trying to settle the suit and not offend Orange Julius Caesar because he may throw a tantrum and end the even bigger money involved with a previously discussed big deal with Skydance. Now, that settlement to get Trump out of the way could happen at any time. And by the way, they're not the first in entertainment and news to cave to Donald Trump, even recently. Trump also sued ABC. That was over George Stephanopoulos' comments on his Sunday show. That scored the Trump team a cool $16 million. But remember, with Trump, to sue, well, that's his move. He uses it as sort of a legalized blackmail. A bit of trivia here, and I'm not making this up. You know how Donald Trump likes to set records and talk about records and is always concerned about size? Donald Trump's team, he at the head of that team, has been involved in over 4,000 lawsuits since 1973. I mean, it's incomprehensible. His businesses have been sued or has sued others over 4,000 times. In the case of 60 Minutes, the damage here, both present and future, is real. Their longtime executive producer, Bill Owens, resigned, leading to the Scott Pelley commentary, which spurred this conversation today. By the way, Owens was the boss at 60 Minutes for years, and he leaves because of pressure from Paramount on how and what to cover in the news, a lack of journalistic independence. There was always a tradition at CBS. The great William Paley started the network and never asked his news division for money. Never wanted them to make it about money. He knew his entertainment programming would pay the bills and said so time and time again. And don't get me wrong, this is not Walter Cronkite's CBS. All you have to do is spend a little of your quality evenings with primetime network TV and you see what a wasteland it's become. It's not entirely fair to say to Urkel, who's got the game show now on CBS, I haven't seen it, maybe that's really good. But in the meantime, a line has been crossed here that should not be crossed, whether primetime can pay their way or not. For 57 years, 60 Minutes has built its reputation on integrity and the true standards of journalism. They've not been perfect, but they're the gold standard of real news. And the ramifications here ought to be obvious. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is still a bully and is only loyal to himself. He's going to be emboldened to continue to abuse his power. And no matter what the terms of these settlements are, he has one-way loyalty, and that's to Donald Trump. He'll continue to trash great reporting that exposes his corruption, past, present, and future. Think about how offensive the move was to dress up like the Pope or have an AI image of him dressed as the Pope. What's next? He'll charge you $99.95 to do an AI image of one of your deceased loved ones? Don't count it out. Could happen. Truth and Trump should never be in the same sentence. That's why his social media site's so ridiculous. Trump, truth, social? Is there a bigger oxymoron than that? Now, why should you care about billionaires trying to make more billions or any of this? Well, you should care because the founding fathers were smart enough to know the best protection for the new nation against corrupt leadership was a free press. As a matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson said, were it left to me to decide whether we ought to have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. Here's a history lesson to reinforce the point. Trump never, ever fully faced legitimate charges against him because of the cowards in Congress and a whole bunch of legal gamesmanship and maneuvering. The felonies he now stands convicted of never would have come to light without the great reporting of the Wall Street Journal. That's a paper that's written off regularly as a Republican paper. No, they're fair. And they're the ones that broke the story of the hush money that led to the first felonious president in the history of the United States. Now, I got several more stories of power and corruption, some of which you may have forgotten about, some you may be too young to have lived through, but they never would have been known about either without great reporters doing their jobs. Here's a quick list. Watergate ends Nixon's presidency. Vice President Spiro Agnew kicked out on tax evasion and bribery charges. The Iran-Contra scandal under Reagan, Bill Clinton's cheating scandals, Senator Goldbar Bob Menendez out on a bribery mess, the Keating Five, remember that? The savings and loan situation? Representative Tom DeLay's money laundering, Gary Hart and John Edwards cheating that ended their campaigns, Jack Abramoff lobbying schemes, Representative Jim Traficant, who probably should have been convicted of having the worst to pay in the history of maybe America, but bribery and racketeering took him down, and Dan Rostenkowski got caught up in the House post office mess, and he was out. Furthermore, the consistent coverage of the hypocrisy of both parties is vital, and it needs to be told. Freedom of the press is a constitutional guarantee, and it can be a mess at times. But Trump only believes in freedom for those who kiss his ass. And I don't care how hard you look up and down the Constitution, every single word of it, there's nothing in there about kissing a president's ass. In a cynical world, how do you cut through the noise to know you're watching, reading, hearing, or seeing real news? I mean, I personally know for me, the last thing I need is another panel with people screaming at each other. It's like the WWF of news. I can't even hate watch that stuff. But if you're looking for real news, look to the biggest operations. The biggest news operations, the longest, most branded news operations. They have the most skilled people, and they have the most to lose. Therefore, common sense would tell you, they're going to try harder to get it right. And all of them have floors of lawyers to make sure that when they screw up, they don't lose their entire companies. Look, what you watch matters. When you watch it matters. There's way more bias at night on the news channels. As a matter of fact, primetime news is pretty much biased wall to wall on the news networks. Here's some pro tips. Best for real news, ABC, NBC, CBS News, and PBS. They've all got big newsrooms and the most consistent reporting at the highest level. The BBC gives you the European perspective on what's happening here and what the world thinks of us. CNN, this is an interesting problem. And keep in mind, I worked for CNN for a bit and did talk shows there and some fill-in stuff. CNN is still fair and moderate all day, most of the day, but stuffed with opinion programs at night. The AP, Reuters, and Politico are all great sources for political news. The Wall Street Journal we talked about leans right in opinions, but reports the news fairly and honestly every day. The New York Times leans left, but also does great news, great breaking news, and deep dives in places where others cannot. This is just a short list. I know I didn't get everybody, and I won't get everybody in the worst side of the equation either. But worst for real news, guaranteed fake news, social media. Social media is not a news source, and there's a very good chance that whatever your neighbors are passing on to you as news is just nonsense. And you got to understand that's the problem. What your neighbors or friends post is not now, nor has it ever been news. Fox News has done more to destroy trust in journalism than anything else, and outside of Brett Baer, they don't even try to tell the truth. Roger Ailes, who started Fox News for Rupert Murdoch, he's been dead a long time now, but the damage lives on. It's a hell of a legacy. MSNBC, consistently weak in calling out Democrats for failing, while always leaning left. They're not a reliable source either. Newsmax, OAN, etc. I mean, not even an attempt to hide their bias. It's important to understand the fundamentals here. Fake news are lies, and not surprisingly, they're perpetuated by the Trump suck-up networks. Donald Trump screaming about fake news is projection to get you to believe that the people doing the real news are the fake news. No. It's the other way around. the fake news comes from the people that are lying. Here's a crucial point. I really hope you'll catch this. A story isn't fake news just because you disagree with it. If you really want to test your views and be fair, find reporting you disagree with and do the research to see if you're right. Search, watch, and read other things that you don't normally look at and balance out your views on the story. Real news is truth, and real journalism has never mattered more than right now. Meanwhile, Congress has failed again. They have a 16% approval rate. That's probably high. I'm guessing it's lower than that. They're historically pathetic. And recently, they wasted so much time in the Senate that by the time they voted on a law the House had passed, called the Press Act, it was blocked by Republican Senator Tom Cotton, and it died on the vine. The Democrats blew this chance. The bill passed in the House, then sat in the Senate until it was dead. And that's on Chuck Schumer. This is the guy, of course, who recently said that he was standing up to Donald Trump by sending him a strongly worded letter. Mr. Schumer, it's time for you to go home. There needs to be a new SHIELD law, which is what the Press Act law was, to protect journalists from abuse. Because it's dictator playbook item number one, control the media. Tell your reps you want a SHIELD law if they want your vote. Look, in the end, it was very impressive that Scott Pelley stood up the way he did. It was a beautifully written piece and well said and well structured and very hard to argue with. I don't think Mr. Pelley's in trouble for it. He defended what was right and called out his own company for being part of the problem, not the solution. So even though I don't know if he was called on the carpet for his on-air remarks, what he said was true and was right. And truth ought to be the goal always, never the thing that you hide. Now, personally, some of you may know this, I lost a couple of high-impact, very lucrative to me, jobs for criticizing Trump. My bosses wanted to control what came out of my mouth and what I said on the air. And I could never do a show for them and not for the audience the way I believed I should be speaking to the audience. Again, by telling the truth. Everything I've ever said about Trump is true. I do not regret a word of it, regardless of what's happened. And what Scott Pelley said really matters. And I hope people hear and understand that. I also hope you'll share this with others who may be helped by it. That concludes Know Your Government for now. And thanks for listening. Now, if I could just add one thing before I go. Ms. Paul Harvey used to say, partly personal, I'm just finishing my third bout of COVID. I know what you're saying, Steve. How could that be possible? How could you look this good? Well, thanks to luck and Paxlovid, the symptoms have been pretty calm. My only complaint is a condition called Paxlovid mouth. Now, I'm telling you this as a fair warning, but I'm not telling you not to use it because it's the second time I've used Paxlovid and it's worked both times. It basically makes COVID feel like you've got a cold. That's it. But the aftertaste after each dose tastes like I ate the tinfoil off the tent of the Thanksgiving turkey. Pfizer, please offer up some other flavors, something less offensive, maybe like, I don't know, fast food tray or leftover toast. COVID on top of everything else is just, well, it's part of the pile. And the reason I keep saying, survive 2025. Oh, by the way, it's not just hats. Remember this, too. We have these beautiful shirts. These Survive 2025 shirts. All set for you for the great weather ahead. Steve, how do you get them? Well, let me tell you. Just go to survive2025.us to get your T-shirts and hats while they last. And I thank you for listening. Thank you for watching here on the YouTube channel. You can go to the YouTube channel and just search live from my office and get there easily. And you can read what we've done here if you like at Substack. That's my latest Substack piece. Go to The Cochran Show at gmail.com and write me a note about anything. As a matter of fact, I'm still doing the phrase that pays. If you use the phrase that pays, survive 2025, and send me your home address as well. So write the phrase that pays and give me your home address. I'll send you an Apt gift card from our friends at Apt. And again, we thank Apt very much for being our title sponsor. Apple Electronics is your number one destination for home with the best selection of quality Bosch appliances. Offering a full range of kitchen appliances that deliver superior precision, important performance. You can own the kitchen like a Bosch. Their dishwashers and crystal dry technology deliver the ultimate clean. And they're even going to dry plastics. You don't have to have the argument anymore. Well, you didn't dry the Tupperware. Well, you don't have to now. Sleek refrigerators with VitaFresh technology is going to keep your food fresh. It's 3 times longer compared to refrigerators that don't have the VitaFresh. Oh, and they've got these very cool ovens that have a combination air fryer. Oven and air fryer together. It's a time saver. It's a space saver. Enduring commitment, quality, and design. It's all Bosch. Makes kitchen appliances invented for life. Thoughtful design runs through every detail of every Bosch appliance. It's a kind of quality that's both lasting and clear. And remember, don't forget about that promotional code, Cochran25, where you can save $25 at Apt or at apt.com. Thank you, Ross Cochran, for putting this together. And thank you for listening and watching live from my office.